Jorgamo number 1, of course, we knew it was going to happen. Valen number 2 is, I mean, Valen's been incredible.
Koala 4?
Sure.
Before every major event in Valorant, there's always a huge discussion about who the best players are in attendance. And Plat Chat has always done a great job of making these top 15, top 20 lists. And this year, they're even using their community to crowdsource the entire list in addition to putting in their own opinions. So here are the top 40 players from their community, and here are the top 10 players. So my question was, how accurate are these lists? How good is the Valorant community at rating players? And so to answer that question, I wanted to look at the data as closely as possible. And that led me down a rabbit hole of sort of creating custom metrics to evaluate players. And a couple of those are going to show up on this 4-quadrant plot, which we will reveal in just a minute. The true value rating is basically the sort of overall impact round to round that a player had on the win rate of their team. This is going to favor stuff like staying alive, making good decisions, and generally having a good sort of like fundamental approach to the game. And that is going to be contrasted with just raw fragging power, which is the combat rating. So this is going to have heavy weighting towards, damage and ACS and first kills and stuff like that. And you're going to see some interesting relationships between these two statistics when we reveal the names. Now, I really went a little bit crazy with the custom metrics. So you're going to see PRS, which is basically a sort of relationship of the combat score and the value score that we just talked about. We have the consistency factor, which is how consistent players are over map to map in terms of their impact on the game. And then we have a hero factor, which is basically a player's sort of like upper percentile of performance and their ability to maybe just pop off and carry a map. And all of these factors are going to be combined into one holistic score, which is how we're going to be rating the players from 15 to 1. So we'll come back to this and reveal these names in just a second. But first, let's go ahead and look at some of the names that didn't make the top 15. And we're going to start with the low value, low combat score, or the underperforming players. And you're probably going to guess that there's going to be, some IGLs in here, some players that don't necessarily have a ton of fragging power, but you're also going to see some kind of interesting names. Something, Jogamo, Devi. These are players that had, maybe slightly lower than average performances in this kickoff. And then you're also going to see, some of the IGLs and some of the anchors on teams that maybe didn't have nearly as much impact as their more high fragging counterparts. So now let's move on to the low value score, high combat score players. And these are going to be pretty high firepower players that are maybe not quite as efficient as you might like, or entry duelists or players that are kind of putting their body on the line, potentially maybe too much at times. And you can see that we've got players like Kong Kong, who takes more first duels than basically anybody, and he wins a lot, but he also loses a lot. We've got Rarga, Bippo, Camo, players that are taking lots of duels and having quite a bit of combat impact, but also maybe throwing their life away a little bit too often. And up towards the top end here, we've got, the likes of Miniboo and Larock, Meteor, players that have a lot of firepower impact, but also maybe are not quite as survivable as you might like, or that maybe they have been in the past. And then there's Jing right here, who you might notice has a golden halo around his dot, and that signifies being in the top 15. You can see up here on the key, the golden halo equals top 15 holistic score MVP level of player. So since we've revealed him on the scatter plot, let's go ahead and just reveal our first player in the top 15, which is Jing. Now, Jing didn't really have like a loud top 15 performance, but he was quietly the second best player on Paper X, and he has some really, really important games to help get them to Masters Santiago. He is actually one of the more consistent players on the list, and that is playing pretty high into this holistic score overall. He also, of course, has the pop-off potential that we all know him for. But yeah, Jing has been a great player for Paper X, and I don't think that they would have made it to Masters without him. So let's go ahead and quickly hop over to our third quadrant, which is the high value, low combat score players. And this isn't even really necessarily that low combat score, but these are going to be players that are playing more of the supportive roles, the smokers, the recon initiators. So let's go ahead and reveal them real quick. And you can see, we've got quite a few more golden halos here, but you can see some of the other names here. We've got Ethan, Envy, Leaf, X Ross, EU, Munchkin. So these are players that are doing a very good job of staying alive, playing for their utility, making good decisions on a round to round basis. So let's go ahead and reveal our next name on the number 14 slot, and that is going to be Artson. And Artson is definitely a name that I don't think a lot of people have on their list, but he had a pretty consistent kickoff. You can see one of, if not the most consistent player, and he's led Furia to the number 1 seed in the Americas region. And let's go ahead and reveal number 13. So here we go. And it's Forsaken, who we haven't revealed on the scatter plot yet, but you can probably guess which quadrant he's in. Forsaken has been the best player on Paper X, certainly is the main reason that they have made it to Masters Santiago. He plays everything. He's incredibly good. When you need a big game out of Forsaken, he's going to deliver, and it doesn't really matter what agent or what role he's playing. Let's move on to number 12. Number 12 is Scuba, another player in this high efficiency bracket. And this makes a lot of sense. Scuba is one of the more dangerous lurkers in the game. He just always seems to be there in the clutch, and he wins a lot of those clutches as well. He's going to be that consistently intelligent player that makes the right decisions at the right time to get his team over the line. So moving on to number 11, we are going to see Trent. Trent is another super efficient player. He's making the right decision a lot. He's playing for his life. He's playing for his utility, and he's throwing good supportive utility for his team. And you can see both Scuba and Trent a little bit lower on just the hard carrying of their team, but certainly some of the more consistent players on this list, which is allowing them to rise up the ranking. All right, let's move on to the top 10. And number 10 is going to be Brock. Yet another super efficient player. You can see there's a little bit of a trend here. These are players that game in and game out are going to give you a very solid performance. They're going to give you those hero rounds. They're going to do a ton of work keeping your team in games, making rounds hard for their opponents. You can also see that Brock has shown a huge carry potential as well, which makes up for a little bit less consistency than you might expect out of him normally. Moving on to number 9, we have RB. And RB has been the most consistent player in the world, even higher than Artson. He has been quietly maybe the best player on Nongshim. I know a lot of people are high on Danby. Francis gets a lot of love, but RB has been unbelievable for this team. And his addition to Nongshim has completely changed the trajectory of this entire team since he joined them last year. And moving on to number 8, we have Mata. Mata is a very unique duelist in today's game because he is one of the only players that is consistently being sent in by himself. While all these other teams have moved over to double duelist, Energy has stuck with their bread and butter of supporting Mata, setting him up with good utility and allowing him to take the fights the way that he wants to. And at number 7, we have Lover's Rock. Lover's Rock has been the absolute scope master in EMEA. He has been the highest abuser of the Outlaw and the Operator, and he has had some unbelievable games. He's also had a couple of stinkers in there, which has led to the lowest consistency score of anybody on this list, but the high highs for Lover's Rock are certainly balancing that out, putting him at number 7 on our list. And moving on to number 6, we have Baby Bay. This might be a pretty controversial one for sure. How has this 30-year-old made it into the top 6 of the players at Masters Santiago? Well, the answer is that he's been not only pretty consistent, but he has been a firepower machine as well. Baby Bay has totally changed the look of G2 by his addition and energy to the team. Number 5 is Koala Noob. Koala Noob has been the heart and soul of the Furia rise to the top of Americas. While Artson is the foundation, Koala Noob has been that tip of the spear. He's one of the better scope players in the world, and he has been thriving in this meta, playing the Yoru, playing the Omen, playing whatever his team needs, and consistently having a ton of impact. His consistency score is very, very high. His carry potential is up there as well. And those two things combined have allowed him to have an outsized level of impact on a team where the expectations coming into the year were quite low. Now, moving on to number 4, we have Happyway. And Happyway is statistically the best player in the world. Now, there's a few caveats with that. Statistics are not everything, and it was done in the Chinese region. However, Happyway stats are unbelievable. There is absolutely no question in my mind that XLG would not be at this event without Happyway. He has been probably the most valuable player in China, and I'm very excited to see how he stacks up on the international stage against some of these bigger names and bigger teams, because the stuff that this guy gets away with is really criminal. He's an incredible pistol player and kind of like Scuba, but a little bit on steroids in terms of his outsized impact towards the ends of these rounds, clutching from weird spots, big multi frags when the team needs it. Happyway has been a force to be reckoned with, and that is why he is top 4. Number 3, Izu. Izu has been the best player on T1, and it really hasn't been that close, which is crazy to say on such a stacked roster. But Izu's Yoru in particular has been unbelievable. He is making consistently good decisions. He is hitting his op shots. He is playing that secondary duelist role to probably the highest level of anybody at this tournament, certainly in the top 2 or 3 in that role. And he is certainly deserving of a top 3 spot on this list. At number 2, we have Martine. Martine has the highest combat score out of any player, and it's been backed up by his back-to-back massive 100+ kill performances, record-breaking performances as mates qualified for their very first international LAN. Martine has been maybe the only player who can compete with Izu for that top spot in terms of his role as secondary duelist, playing the Yoru to one of the most impressive degrees we have ever seen a Yoru be played at. And Martine is perfectly set up in this meta to succeed. He's incredibly smart. He makes very good decisions. His utility is good, and he's a great scope player as well. And that is why he lands at number 2. And at number 1, we have Valen. Valen has been leading the team from a strategic standpoint and also from the front of the pack when it comes to fighting. His hero factor is off the charts, and his ability to take the right fights at the right time, multi-frag, win rounds from behind, and overall just have an outsized impact that you would expect from maybe a duelist player on the smokes roll, while also calling, is putting him at the top of this list. Now, I knew that I wanted Valen on my list, and after seeing him consistently ranking highly in metric after metric, I knew he was going to be in the top 5. But when the data showed that he was number 1 overall, I couldn't be mad, because I've always loved ranking IGLs pretty highly, just because there's a value there that doesn't show up statistically. So when you have an IGL doing the statistics work as well, in addition to also calling, it's pretty hard to doubt that impact. So that is our top 15. Let's go ahead and reveal our final quadrant right here. You can see that here are these MVP level players. We've got Valen as by far the highest value player overall. And we've got Happyway, RB, very high value players. We've got Lovers Rock, Martine, high firepower players. And then we've got our nice little balanced, they're really good at everything right here in this quadrant. And overall, I'm pretty happy with where the data landed on some of these names. There's a couple that are pretty close, right? Dambi, LaRock, Mini, Nats. I know that these players showed up on quite a few other people's lists. And you can see that they're very close to cracking the top 10, the top 15. But they didn't quite make it based off of the metrics that I used. And so to compare the two lists, on Plaget, we had Martine, Forsaken, Izu, Dambi, Valen, Lovers Rock, Nats, Koala Noob, Mini, and LaRock. And on our list, obviously, we had quite a few of those names, and the ones that didn't make it were pretty darn close. And so overall, I have to say, hats off to the community. You guys did pretty good. Maybe you do know ball. So that's the top 15 from me. Let me know what you think about it in the comments below.